Hello, Lovelace. Welcome to today's English session. Now, as you can see from our question, can I write a non-chronological report? We've moved on. We've moved on from our narratives and our overcoming a monster story to a non-fiction piece of writing. Now, as I'm sure you all know, a non-fiction piece of writing is a factual piece. Okay, so our focus the next few lessons will be factual writing, information texts. And in the case of the non-chronological report, it is just that. It's an information text about a particular subject. Now you can see from the images on my front screen that we are going to focus our non-chronological report on our history topic, which is moving away from the Anglo-Saxons and on to the next invaders of Britain, who are the Vikings. More on that later, but for now, I want to do a little bit of work on our tenses, and in particular, the past tense. There were times last week during our Overcome the Monster story where I think a few of us got a little bit mixed up and we muddle up our past tense and our present tense. Okay. Now, when you're writing a story, usually, especially if you're telling a story like we did last week from the point of view of the warriors, then you often talk in the past tense because the events have happened. Okay, but there are three main types of past tense writing. As you can see on the left side of my screen, we've got the past tense, the past perfect tense, and the past progressive tense, or past continuous, sometimes referred to as. The past tense, this is when it describes something that took place at a specific time and has finished. Okay, so the example there is, I walked the dog. Okay, I walked the dog yesterday. So it's in the past, it happened yesterday, and it's finished. You're not still walking. So I walked the dog yesterday. The past perfect tense is a little bit different. It's still in the past, but it describes an event that was completed in the past before something else happened. So usually the sentence continues and describes something else that followed on. So in this case, I had walked the dog by the time my mum got home from work. Okay, so you've got two events there. You've got mum coming home from work, which follows walking the dog. So I had walked the dog by the time my mum got home from work. So had walked is the past perfect tense. And finally, the past progressive, this is when actions took place over a period of time in the past. So I was walking the dog when it started raining. Was walking. So these events happen during the time you were doing it. Okay. So the past perfect, the second one down, is when an event follows on. Past progressive is when an event happens during your actions whilst you're doing it. So I was walking the dog when it started raining. Okay. Don't worry. I know that's a lot to take in and say, and hopefully it will just gradually start to understand with a few activities, a few exercises. So, but here's a couple of top tips. Walked. So most, not all, but most verbs, when they end in ed, refer to the past version of that verb. There are exceptions. There's exceptions to every rule. So there are some verbs where you change the spelling altogether for the past participle, for the past version. Okay. If you so ed, past tense. If you come across had, then it is the past perfect tense usually. Okay. So if you look out for had, then you've got the past perfect. And finally, with past progressive, if it was or were, then you're usually looking at past progressive. Okay. Top tips, little things to look out for, not 100% accurate, but a really good guide to help you work out which version of the past you're looking at. So we've got 6 words on the screen now. Which of these are in the past tense? Okay, so which of these describe things that happened in the past? Hopefully you've recognized written. The book was written 100 years ago. Okay, so written is in the past. Finished. I have finished my homework. So it's all done. It's already happened. It's in the past. I'm going to say broke. I broke the plate yesterday. So broke has already happened. And finally, sniffed. Okay. He sniffed the food before he ate it. He's already done it. It's in the past. Okay. Right. Now, here we have on the right side, we've got some verbs. Catching, laughing, beginning, and courting. Which of those match the past versions on the left? Okay, so began, laugh, and caught. When we match them up, well, began is the past version of beginning. Okay, so we can have he was beginning the race or he began the race. Laugh and laughing. Okay. He was laughing. He began to laugh. Okay. Caught and catching. Hopefully nobody fell into the trap of courting. Don't think that's even a word. I'll have to check the dictionary, but I don't think courting spelt like that is even a word. But catching. He caught the fish. He was catching fish. Okay. Right. So in our first slide, I explained to you what past tense, past perfect tense, and past progressive tense were. You might want to just quickly nip back in the video and remind yourself. But if you're happy, then I would like you to identify which past tense has been used here. So my example, I had been at home all day before going to the cinema. Now remember the top tip? If we see had with our verb, so I had been, then it's past perfect. Okay. What about the next 6? Have a think. Let's have a look. Jenny played basketball on Saturday. Well, there's no other language around your verb. The verb has got ed, so it is past. This is just a simple past tense example. Okay, Jenny played basketball on Saturday. There's nothing else going on in that sentence. I was flying a kite when it started raining. Okay, so in this one, was flying. Past perfect, past tense, or past progressive? Well, in this case, it's past progressive because it's was. I was doing something when something else happened. So I was flying the kite when it started raining. The raining happened during the time I was flying the kite. So that's past progressive. Okay. They went home after the match. What about this one? Past tense. We don't have was or has or had. Okay, so went, past tense of which verb? Was the past tense of to do. Okay. Oh, sorry, not to do. I apologize. To go. They instead of they go home after the match, they went home. So past tense of to go. What about number 4? We were baking cookies for almost 2 hours on the weekend. Were baking. Well, that's past progressive. And the reason it's were instead of was is because there's more than one person. We would say I was baking, but we need to say we were baking. So it's just the same as the was example, but because there's more than one person, we use were instead of was. So I could have said I was baking cookies, but because there's more than one person, we have to say we were baking cookies. But it's still past progressive. Okay. We've got that were stroke was in there. And there is in that sentence. Number 5. The shop had closed 10 minutes early, so we couldn't buy any milk. Had closed. What did we say about had? It means it's past perfect. Okay, so we couldn't buy any milk, but that happened after the store closed. We've got the two events, the store closing and then trying to buy milk. They followed on from each other. They didn't happen at the same time. So the shop had closed. So we couldn't buy any milk. Those two events follow on from each other. And then number 6, I had done 2 pages of my homework before my dog ate it. What do we think there? Again, past perfect. I had done 2 pages of my homework. So there's event 1, and then it's followed by the dog eating it. So that would be a past perfect piece of sentence. Okay? Right. Your task for today is a cold task. So I'm not going to give you any particular instruction or any particular direction. I want to know, what you can remember about non-chronological reports, information texts. And what I would like you to do is tell me all about life in lockdown. We're all having to deal with this situation. It's a very strange situation. But I also know that every household, every family is dealing with it in a slightly different way. So I want to know about your lockdown. What's life like for you? Try to remember what you've done already. Okay. Say, I've spoken with the other year 5 teachers, and I know you've touched on this before. So I'm very curious to see what you can remember and how you present your non-chronological report. Okay, so there's your task. That's the end of today's session. As usual, I would ask you to look after yourself, look after the people around you, and stay safe. And I will see you very soon.